Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today and welcome to our Listware for Salesforce demo. I'm Jimena Meharada from Melissa Data. Joining us today is Data Quality Analyst Kevin Ubay-Ubay. He'll give us a quick overview on our Listware for Salesforce app, which is our cloud-based full contact data quality and enrichment app. It corrects and completes contact data, validates international addresses, and enriches U.S. addresses with property and mortgage data. We will reserve some time at the end of the presentation for questions. Any questions we don't have time to answer will be archived, and Kevin will be happy to answer them offline. I will also send you a link to a recording of today's webinar via email, so you're able to follow up on anything you missed. All right, let's get started. Kevin?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin. I'm a data quality analyst here at Melissa Data, and welcome to our webinar. We will be discussing some brand new features within our data quality app, Listware, that will improve the way you manage your data on Salesforce. So let's get started. Now, I'm going to assume that everyone here is a Salesforce user, or at least familiar with the term CRM. Simply put, a CRM, or a customer relationship management system, helps businesses manage relationships along with the customers along with the data associated with them. These relationships help connect you to people who need your products and services. Now, for a small business, a CRM like Salesforce is used to help store customer and prospect contact information on the cloud. However, if you want to scale your business, you're going to want to do more with your CRM than just store data. Management is going to want to analyze that data and make decisions based on that. Sales reps are going to use that data to convert leads to customers. Now, situations like the one I mentioned depends on having data that is up to date and valid. Unfortunately, without data quality tools in your system, issues in your data will start to pop up over time. So we got to remember that a lot of things can happen with your customers, causing your contact information to always be in flux. For example, they could be moving to new places, get a new phone number, or a new email address. Data by itself stays static, so while all these things are happening with your customers, your data becomes obsolete and invalid if nothing is done. Fortunately, things don't have to be that way. With the right tools, problems like these are easy to solve. So this brings us to our solution, which is Listware for Salesforce. Listware is a cloud-based full contact data quality and enrichment app that integrates into your Salesforce organization and brings you global address auto-completion along with address verification. It brings full contact data quality and property enrichment. So let's take a closer look at each one. First, our new feature that we are proud to present is global address auto-completion. Now you don't have to worry about losing leads or increased shipping costs due to incorrect addresses being typed in. For those who are familiar with Express Entry, what we've done is leverage the web service and have now integrated it into Salesforce. So what this means is that as you type along an address in Salesforce, a list of suggestions will appear showing possible addresses, as you can see in the screenshot here. We will be taking a closer look at this during the demo afterwards, but basically if you see your address in the list, you simply select it. With this feature, you can now speed up address entry by reducing the number of keystrokes while also eliminating the possibility of addresses being entered incorrectly. So what if you already have international addresses stored within Salesforce? Listware brings global address verification. With this, Listware can validate international addresses in 240 countries and territories and check if the address does in fact exist by comparing your address to a database of known valid global addresses. We can take those global addresses and then place them in a standardized mailing address format. So with this, you can update and standardize improperly formatted addresses in your contact data. Now, for those out there who primarily deal with customers in the US, we provide an all-in-one contact solution within Listware called Personator. Fields that usually go along with contact are the name, address, phone, and email. So let's say that for one of your contacts, you just have the customer's name and address. What Listware can do is it could apply some common data quality operations, such as parsing the name and address. And then with Listware, we can do common data. And then, after parsing the name and address, what we can do is then check if the address is delivered by the USPS. But besides that, in addition, Listware can do things such as verifying if the name does belong with the address, And then we can even take that further, and then we can append in missing information, such as the email and the phone number. And finally, to top that off, what about contacts who have moved to a new place and they forgot to give you their new address? What we can do is we can also update the old address in your data with their new address. So as you can see, a tool like this is pretty powerful in maintaining those relationships with your customers. And finally, Listware can provide more specialized enrichment by adding property and mortgage data to your contacts. We have data for over 140 million parcels within the U.S. The data, which gets updated weekly, comes from tax rolls and deeds from the counties themselves. Included in the data returned is information about the property value, tax assessment data, mortgage and trust deed information, and more. With this integrated into Salesforce, you can now get an instant access to the same data that real estate professionals rely on, speeding up and simplifying property research. This type of enrichment is ideal for home buyers, property investors, and real estate agents who want to target products and services to homeowners. So to quickly sum up all the benefits that Listware brings to Salesforce, we now have the ability to validate US and international addresses, plus in real time with address on completion via express entry. Listware can verify the pieces of data within your contact, giving you a way to determine if your data is good, and also update and appending missing data. So with all these features in Salesforce, you can now quickly improve your contact data easily and spend less time worrying about your data and more time thinking about managing your business. So that concludes the slideshow. We'll be going into a demonstration of the app right now. Let me bring up my browser. So I've already got the Listware app installed, as you can see here. And then the first thing you'll probably see are these two tabs here, Administration and Advanced Mappings. I'm going to go into my Administrations tab. And then I'm just going to talk about this for a little while. So when you download this app, or if you want to do a free trial, you'll be given an email. And then that email will contain your license string. And then you want to paste that into here. Now these next four tabs that I want to show, these correspond to the four main components of Listware. So the first tab here, we got express entry. And then the option we have here is we can specify a default country. So when if you know which country you're going to be primarily dealing with, you can specify which country. By default, it's going to be the United States. But as you can see here, if I click on this list, we can see all the countries that are supported. Next tab, Personator. So Personators are a full contact data quality solution for if you're primarily dealing with contacts in the US. The first thing we see here is the actions. By default, a check is always done, and basically that checks if the individual pieces of your data are valid and correct. The next actions which we can turn on and off are the verify, move, and append. So after a check is done, we can verify if the data corresponds to each other, meaning like, for example, we could tell you if the name matches with the address or the email matches with the address and so forth. Next action, move. If we determine, given a person's name and address, if we determine that they have moved, we can append in a new address. And then finally, with the append action, let's say you're missing some pieces of data within your contact. Let's say you don't have an email. What we can do is if we find some of your data, contact data, for example, your name and address in our database, we can append in the email address if it exists. And then continuing along, we have also other options here. So we can turn on advanced address checking. Right here, we got the verify and append options. So one verify option we could set is we could specify which piece of data within our contact accesses pivot. So here we can see there's address, phone, and email. If you select one of these, that accesses your pivot. So if we pick the address, then your address is the pivot for verification. If you just leave it to auto, it'll go through what you have, address, phone, and email. And then we have also an append option. We could have Personator append in data if your data is blank. So let's say you're sending in a contact with a name and address, but your email is blank. If we find that contact in our database, we can append in the email if it's blank. Or you could always have, we always tell Personator to append in data with always, And then you could, the final option here, check error. Basically, if we determine that there's an error with one of the pieces of data, we could append in the correct data. And then down here, we can specify which additional groups or columns because we want returned. If you want your name parsed down into like first name, last name, you probably want to turn on name details. You want the address parsed, you turn on these columns, address details, and parsed address. If you want census data returned, you could turn on the census details. If you want geocoding done, for example, the latitude, longitude, you turn them on here. If you want the phone number parsed down into prefix and suffix, you turn this on. And then if you want the email address parsed into its mailbox and domain, you turn this on. So that's for personator. Now the next component, global address. So if we want to verify international addresses, the options we could set here is our country of origin. So basically, this country of origin basically indicates the country that you're mailing your parcels or mail from. So by default, it's set to United States of America. So if you're mailing, if you're validating an address that's in some other country, say Colombia, basically it will when you verify the address through global address verification, what we will do is append in the name of the country into the address. And then for output script, so our global address web service can handle transliteration if needed. So for example, if you're dealing with countries that have their addresses written in some other script, and then you want to have it written out in Latin characters, you can specify that here, or you could keep it native to the country, which is the native option here, or you could just leave the script alone, which is no change, and just keep the script as is. And then finally, we also do support geocoding for some countries in globally. If you want to turn it on, you could select the yes option here, and if you have this option selected, geocoding will be done if the data is available. And then the last component of Listware is the property component. And then here we can specify the level of detail of information returned. Basically, you have the option to select between basic and detailed. With basic, if you have this selected, only a summary of the parcel information gets returned. So that usually that's like the owner name, sale price, when the property was last sold. If you select detailed, that returns a way more detailed response, over 240 data fields. So if you want to know more about the property, select detailed. And that's pretty much the administration settings in a nutshell. Now to demonstrate the express entry feature. So in the scenario, let's say we're creating a new contact and we got to enter in a new address. So I'm just going to go to the Contacts tab and start up a new contact. So I'm going to click on New. So now what we see here is not the usual contact form that usually pops up when you click on the New button. What we got here is now a Visualforce page for our express entry component. And then what you can see here is a couple of fields here. Let's start out with freeform. Basically with freeform, you can just start typing in an address. So let's go along and just start typing. And then as you can see, as I type along, a list of suggestions appear. And as I keep typing, the results will narrow down. But as you can see, I could pick one of these addresses if the address I intend pops up. So for example, here's our headquarters. Let's just pick this address. And then as you can see, once I selected that address, you can see these fields down here populated. So I got the street, city, state, and postal code all populated now. And now, so this is freeform in a nutshell. We also provide another way of entering addresses in. The other way to enter in an address is through fielded input. So basically, we could start out by typing in the postal code. So as you can see here, as I typed in the postal code, we see that we have the city and an administrative area popping up, the state. So if I just pick this, now what this has done is this lets express entry narrow down the number of results for the street addresses, since I have the postal code entered in. So if I go to the street address field, I can start typing in there. And then as you can see, the results have been narrowed down since the postal code has been specified. So this could reduce the number of keystrokes even further. So as you can see, I just had to type in the house street number, and then as you can see, I already got my the address for our headquarters. And then there you go. So I got these with Express Entry, it simplified the entering of the address. And then if I like this address, what I can do is I could click on this button next. And then as you can see here, this is the usual contact form. But as you can see down here, the mailing street fields have been populated now. So that's Express Entry. Let's try entering some international address. So as I mentioned back in the administration tab, you could change the default country here. By going into administration, go to Express Entry, change the default country. By default, I had it set to United States. But if you know you're going to be dealing with like one country specifically, and you just don't want to like go through this list and keep selecting that country, you can change the default country in the administration tab. But let's try out United Kingdom. So I got selected the country, and then let's try this out. So as I start typing, we get a list of suggestions popping up. Just pick one of these addresses. And then here we can see the street, city, and postal code has been populated. Now if I want to continue on and create a contact, here we go, and then we see that these mailing fields have now been populated. And then just to finish, I want to save this contact, so I have to put in a name. And then here we go. I've saved the contact, and then we can see that we have a complete mailing address in here. And that looks formatted properly. And that's basically Express Entry. So just to give a quick overview of the other components, so the other components, personator, property, and global address. Let's try running this address through one of the components, global address. Just take out this postal code. So let's say you had the address already entered in, but this address is incomplete as I took out the postal code. So I'm going to bring up one of the components, global address verification. Now, as you can see here, this brought up a new window with a Visualforce page representing the global address component. So here we see the contact, and here's the component that Listware brings. Let's just run this through. And then as you can see down here, we get a response back. The first thing I should mention is these are result codes here. These result codes give a summary of the level of verification that was done, and if we made any changes to the address as well. We don't expect you to know immediately what they mean, but to make it simple, we have a link down here that takes you to our wiki page and could give you more details about what these result codes mean. But basically, going back to the window, just to mention what these mean. AV24, that means this address has been validated down to the premise level, which is to be expected because we got this address from Express Entry, and Express Entry always returns back a valid address. And then we also see that some changes have been applied. Because I took out the postal code, we can see that global address has placed it back in. And then as you can see down here, it parsed down the address, and then we look at the postal code, we get the postal code back. So if I want to fix my contact, I just run this through, click on Update My Contact. And then as you can see up here, now the contact has been updated immediately, and that's been fixed with the proper result code. With the proper postal code, And then finally, so the other components, personator and property lookup, they also have a similar interface as well. If I click on these buttons, they bring up a page with our Visualforce components in there already. But the last thing I want to mention is how you get these components to appear in your Salesforce account. So if I go back to my account, if I go to my name, go to my profile, click on Setup. So how to add these components into your page layouts. So for contacts, for example. So I click on Setup, go to Customize, and I want to add these pages to my contacts. So to get those pages, we would need to edit the page layouts. So you just edit the page layout that you're using. As you can see, when you install the Listware app, it already makes some buttons. There's buttons already included in the app for you. So basically, to add them into your contacts, what you would do is you go to Buttons, and then you just drag these buttons that we made into the Custom Buttons section. Now, some people don't want to use buttons because these buttons pop up a new window. We do provide some inline theme components. Basically, if you want these Visualforce pages to be integrated into the contact page, you could go down to Visualforce pages, and then if you look in here, we've already made some inline theme components. So if I want to bring the global component in here into my contact, what I could do is I create a new section called Listware, and then I've added the Visualforce page. And as you can see, it created like this new section here. I just want to adjust this, enable scroll bars, adjust size. So if I save this page, now if I go back to my contact page, go back to that one contact, and now you can see here we have the contact, we have the global address component integrated into the contact page. And as you can see, it still has our results in here, AV24. And then finally, I want to show how you add in the express entry component. So express entry is how we add that in is we want to go to buttons, links, and actions, and then basically we want to override the new action. So basically, as I demonstrated earlier, when I clicked on the new button, it was that form that usually pops up was replaced with another form. And how that was done is I go to App Setup, Customize Contacts, and then I want to override a new action by going into the buttons, links, and actions. And then as you can see here, the new action I can edit and override it. So if I click on Edit next to New, as you can see, I've already overridden the new action with the Visualforce page. So that's how you get the express entry to appear in there. So with that overridden, that's how I was able to, when I create a new contact, that's why when I clicked on New, we get the express entry form now. And that's pretty much all I want to show for this demonstration. So well, this concludes my demonstration. So let's go to questions.
Thank you, Kevin. The floor is now open for questions. If you have any questions, please type them in right now. And I do want to remind you that I will be sending out a link to a recording of today's webinar. You can expect to receive it via email by the end of the week. All right, I'll give you guys a few seconds to come up with some questions. Okay, we got some questions. Let me go to the first one. On the international level, can you just correct your address and on a postal correction level, or do you know if the client moved, deceased, or have been gone away?
That's a good question. Right now, we only support address standardization and verification for global, but in the future, we do plan to support more countries within Personator. So Personator can determine like if the person has moved, but that one, Personator is only for the U.S. right now, but maybe in the future.
How do you update your data, and how often is it updated?
So for the U.S., our data comes from the USPS, and that gets updated every month. For the global, that's compiled from the data gets compiled every quarter.
Can a validation batch be run on a set of existing U.S. addresses?
right now with this app, you can only do address verification for one at a time. But we do have other solutions that support batch processing. For example, you may want to look into our SSIS or Metaho solutions, which will allow you to do batch processing.
What Salesforce objects does this app work with?
That's a good question. So one thing I didn't mention, but by default, the Listware app supports leads, accounts, and contacts. One thing I wanted to show was actually the advanced mappings feature. So you probably saw this tab already, but up here, if we go to advanced mappings, we could provide, you could specify the mappings for an object we select. So by default, we only support these 3 objects. But if you wanted support for custom objects or any other object in Salesforce, you would need to get an enterprise key. For more information about that, you're going to need to get in contact with one of our sales reps, and they'll give you more information about it. But basically, if you had an enterprise key, then you get support for all the objects within the Salesforce. But for example, if I selected contact, now what I can do here is I can specify the mappings here. So here, all our components can take in an address, and then here you specify name, which is usually for personator. But here I can map in the contact fields and to tell the Listware app which fields are my address fields. And then over here I can specify the output mappings. If I didn't like the default placement of where Listware placed all my data, I could override that here by changing the output mappings. So if you wanted like latitude and longitude stored somewhere, by default Listware doesn't put it anywhere, but here you can specify which field you want to place them into.
Is a report produced to show change records with deltas before and after?
So whenever you run one of your contacts through, we give you the option of reviewing the data, the results first before you override them. So as you can see here, in the example that I had, when I ran the record through global address, it didn't immediately update my contact. So what happened was I ran this address through global address, I did a lookup, and then down here I could see the results of like the address, and then I could determine if those results look good to me, and if they do, what I could do is I click on update my contact, and then basically it'll take these changes and then bring them up into your contact. So there you go. You can review the results first before you change the contact.
Can you explain the 30-day trial?
So when you go to App Exchange and look for our app, you have the option of trying out our app for 30 days, and then if you do, what will happen is you'll get an email with your license string, and then what you could do is basically you just take that license string, go to Administration tab, throw it in here, and then what will happen is you'll be given 1,000 free credits in order to try out the app for 30 days. So that's something we highly recommend if you want to see how the app works. As you can see, this app does a lot. So we highly recommend that you download this app, do a free trial, and then run some records through it. And then if everything looks good to you, you then decide if you want to purchase the app.
All right, so it looks like that's all the time we have. I know there were a few questions we didn't get to, so those will be archived, and Kevin will be happy to answer those. We have his email on the screen, so if you think of any more questions, please email him, and he will be happy to answer. If you have any questions on any of our other products, I know Kevin mentioned a few of those, you can give us a call at 1-800-MELISSA or log on to our website for more info at www.melissadata.com. And I just want to thank you guys for coming today to our webinar. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we hope to see you at a future webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.